George Danikian, it's so great to have you on here. I mean, we've been friends for a while, and I've got to say, I mean, for those of you watching from overseas, you're a legendary TV character here. You were on many, many shows, which we'll talk about all of them. But the reason why I've got you on here is because you've been over many times to my house for dinner parties, and I've got to say, I love getting people over when you're there. And then I just we have a few drinks, and then I just let you go, mate. And I just sit back. You're a fantastic raconteur. You have got great insights into the Australian television world and some great stories. You've worked in across all the networks. Um, Thank you so much for coming.
No,
This is
my
going to be a
thrill.
great
My
show.
thrill.
This is going to be a great show. I've got no notes. I'm just going on, the things that we talked about.
You just remember those dinners,
I remember
and you've
those
got
dinners.
everything you need.
That's all I got. So let's start. Where were you born? Because you weren't born in Melbourne, were you?
No, I'm a Sydney boy, born and bred.
Yeah, like me.
Eastern suburbs.
Yeah.
St Margaret's Hospital.
Eastern sub. Where in the eastern suburbs?
Kingsford.
Oh, Kingsford,
Or
right?
Kynasford.
Kynasford, yeah.
Kingsford.
Born to Greek parents.
Born to parents who were born in Athens.
Yep.
Mum is Greek. Dad is Armenian Greek.
Right.
So his forebears had to flee from Ottoman Turkey at the turn of the 20th century
Yeah.
because they were Christians.
Yeah.
And this battle that we seem to be having, nearly 100 and plus years on, it was slightly different, edgier,
Yeah.
more dangerous.
Yeah.
And my grandfather fled.
Yeah.
Had he not, I wouldn't be here doing this piece with you. So Dad was born in Athens. Mum, they were born in Nea Ionia, New Ionia,
Yeah.
which is inner Athens, beautiful part of the city. And they were going to, they fell in love. They were going to get married, but the world around them changed. The Italian occupation, the German occupation. My father being this problem solver, fabulous guy. You would have loved him. Spoke 7 languages. He taught himself Italian, taught himself German,
Yeah.
he taught himself English, and without a hint of an accent. And you can only do that if you have a good ear.
Yeah. And I think you've taken that too. I mean,
I've
because I'm gonna get you to
understood.
I'm gonna get you to pronounce a few
Yeah.
very difficult names, because that's one of the things that you're famous for, mate.
Infamous. They got it in
Infamous.
for me. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
you
yeah.
got to.
Well, they all go, "Hey, Danikian, can you pronounce this?"
Yeah.
And for a long, long time, I wasn't even allowed to pronounce my name because it was too ethnic in Australia.
Right. Well, let's
100
get
years
to
ago,
that. Let's
we were
get to
talking
that. So you're in school. Did you finish school? Did you do
Oh, yeah, finished
any
school.
tertiary education?
That was the most exciting part. I got to high school. I was straight
Still in
A
Sydney.
student.
Still in
Sydney
Sydney.
boy, yeah,
Yeah.
Sydney boy. South Sydney boys, and was going in this unique direction where I was a state cricketer, state footballer, state athlete.
Yeah.
I had the best coaches around me, Kenny Stewart, who was the athletics coach, Josef Vengloš, who would take Czechoslovakia years later to the first European Championship and would coach Celtic and discover a guy called Mark Viduka and unleash him onto the world. He was our school coach, and he came to learn, pardon me, he came to learn English. I think he was a pilgrim. He wanted to spread the word, football.
Yeah.
And he did. He ultimately did. But he discovered us. He gave us a chance. He believed in us. Oh, we were young. We had no right to be playing in his team. But he was the one that opened a little pathway in my brain, and I wanted to become a professional footballer.
Right.
I wanted to be a professional sportsman.
Yeah.
Wanted to play for Australia, cricket. Imagine, good Greek Armenian boy playing cricket. Not going to happen.
No. And I've got this. I think when you came to the show, I'm not sure if you saw, I did this bit about why there's no ethnics in cricket. Was because, you'd buy the stumps,
Correct.
the bails, the bat. It was from Kmart. Everything was in the pack. You'd use it for 1 or 2 times. Your dad would see how straight the stumps were, and bang, they're in the garden holding up the tomato plants.
Correct.
So that's why there's no ethnics in cricket.
I've heard that piece that you've done, and I've got to say one of the fun things my wife and I do is we've watched your career. Yeah, we've watched you from your early days mature. Become the consummate performer. And I've said to you personally, privately, what a joy it is when you watch someone just get better at their craft.
Thank you,
And in fact, discover that there are that there are other ways to do what they do
Yeah.
and take it there. Have the courage
Yeah.
to do it. Because what we do and what we did from the very early days is we had to break the envelope. We had
Yeah.
to break the ceiling.
Yeah.
We had to push
Yeah.
like never before.
Yeah.
Because if you had said to my father,
Yeah.
as I did,
Yeah.
hey, Dad, I want a career in media,
Yeah.
he would have laughed
Yeah.
and laughed
Yeah.
and laughed.
Yeah.
But when he discovered that I was serious,
Yeah.
he backed me to the hilt.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you got into that. So you wanted to become a professional sportsman.
Yep.
But
Sporting injury.
right.
They couldn't fix my shoulder.
What happened to you? What was it?
I was being an idiot. I was
in soccer or football?
No, you won't believe it. I've never, ever
Yeah.
been injured playing
Yeah.
anything
Mm-hmm.
except when I did my shoulder.
Right.
A couple of mates,
Mm-hmm.
we were showing one another how strong we were,
Yeah.
how mighty, how fantastic.
Yeah.
We were lifting weights.
Yeah. Right.
And I picked the weight up.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, hang on. And before I knew it, I dropped it.
Yeah.
But I kept holding on to it.
Yeah.
And it took my shoulder out.
Right.
And before I knew what had happened, I was in a hospital,
Yeah.
in emergency.
Mm-hmm.
The shoulder had slipped back in without anyone realising. I was in such agony.
Mm-hmm.
So when the medicos at the time checked it,
Yeah.
they did all the normal checks, rotation,
Yeah.
full movement, nothing looks out of place. You're okay, kid.
Yeah.
You must have pinched a nerve.
Right.
So armed with that knowledge, I went, whew,
Yeah.
missed out there.
Yeah.
Went to the state titles in the long jump, and I dislocate my shoulder as I leave the board.
Wow.
So I go, spring. Oh, dear.
State title. So you were very,
Mate,
you're
we
very
were
athletic.
competitors, buddy.
Yeah. Right.
And that's what
And
keeps us going
Yeah.
today.
And so had it not been for that shoulder injury, you probably would have gone down that road and not been in the media. And there's a few people like that. There was Julio Iglesias was a budding soccer
Yeah,
player
yeah.
who had a very bad car accident. In fact, when you watch him live, I went to see him a few years ago. What you don't realise, because you never really see it, is that when he walks the stage, he's got a very distinct limp,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
you don't see that.
No,
normally.
you don't. He's
You know?
learned to cover it very
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Anthony LaPaglia, a goalkeeper.
Yes.
Our actor,
Yeah,
Hollywood.
Yeah,
the
I
whole
met
box of
Anthony
guys.
last year in LA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, right.
We had him here, helping and supporting Craig Foster,
Yes.
who's another
Yeah.
footballer
Yeah.
who actually did make it.
Yeah, yeah.
And now he's making a career for himself in
the media.
politics
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in advocacy.
Okay. So back to you.
Yeah,
You have this injury. How do you go? Where do you go from there to start
Well, I
getting
got
into
to, I
the
got to a
media?
very dark place.
Right.
I railed against my education,
Mm-hmm.
railed against where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. Didn't know what I was going to do, and took it out on myself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And before I realised it, my HSC had come and gone,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get the marks that I needed to go to tertiary level.
Right.
But I went to Randwick Tech, which was giving us an opportunity to redo the HSC.
Yeah.
But my mind wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
It started getting distracted. I was seeing young women, and my pathway
It's always
was
the girls. It's
Well,
always the girls.
It had to come.
Yeah.
It had to happen at some stage
Yeah.
of my life. And that discovery sort of, it can distract you in a millisecond.
Yeah.
And it did.
So what was your first foray into media? How did you know that you wanted to get in there? What
I went to a party,
Yeah.
met a couple of people, and they said, you got a great voice. I
you
said,
do have a
"Yeah,
great
yeah,
voice.
yeah,
I was
yeah."
just listening. I mean, I've heard it a million times, but just listening to it now, it's got a great voice.
Well, that came about because I had a terrible stutter.
Right.
And as a young kid, about
Yeah.
16, I, again, didn't know what I was doing, but I thought I'd try it.
Yeah.
I grabbed my father's fantastic Grundig
Head-
tape-to-tape
yeah. Right.
recorder,
Yeah.
grabbed the microphone and started reading
Mm-hmm.
without realising what I was doing, and slowed my speech down to a tempo and a sort of cadence that worked for me, and suddenly this stutter had gone,
Right.
or was starting to disappear.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you slow things down,
Mm.
your pitch changes and
Yeah.
you start sounding a bit different. And I went to this party, we were talking, and this guy, radio guy, comes up to me, he goes, mate, you've got to consider a career in radio. I said, rubbish. Ethnic boys and girls.
Yeah.
There's no, vibe that takes you there. But suddenly he said to me, no, 2SM in Sydney are running this radio
I remember
school.
2SM.
It's called Dígame, which is
Right.
speak to me,
Right.
apparently in Spanish. So I went and spoke to them, and I walked into a class. How's this? You'd know it, but I don't know if the international audience would appreciate it. Doug Mulray was in that class.
Oh, Doug Mulray, right, yeah.
Mullows in the morning.
Yeah.
Macca.
Well, Doug Mulray
Macca,
was one of our
ABC's
original
Macca.
shock jocks.
Yeah. He was a tremendous character.
Yeah.
Did very, very well in Sydney.
Yeah.
And of course, Ian McRae, or Macca, as he was known by the ABC, and me, and Bob Stewart, who was the then mentor and radio broadcaster who was looking after this flock of youngsters, thought, what have I got here? I've got three characters, and they may well, at some stage down the future, make a career for themselves. And I met Bob 30 years later in Noosa on a holiday. And he said to me, I knew I had something. I didn't know quite what to make of it, but it was quite something. So when you reflect on things like that, it's very special.
So you started in radio?
Started in radio at 1272 SM,
Yeah.
doing this radio course.
Yeah.
Then did a couple of audition tapes.
Yeah.
Then I said, no, I'll do another one.
Yeah.
Didn't like the first two. And I sent them out, which is what you tended
For
to do.
TV now?
No,
No.
television. Get away.
Right.
Radio, mate.
Just
I'm
radio.
not talking
Okay.
televisione
Yeah, yeah.
impossibile.
Yeah.
It wasn't an option. I never in my mind thought that an ethnic boy would be given a chance.
Yeah.
There was no ethnic face on Australian television.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. All of the things I wasn't.
Yeah. Let's get to that. How did that happen then? Were you one of the first? Or the first? Who else was there
Well,
at the time?
I would have thought genuinely Jana Wendt was
Wendt,
probably the
yeah.
first successful multicultural face.
Yes.
Yes. But she didn't pretend to be, she didn't project as multicultural.
Yeah.
She projected as this beautiful young woman,
Yeah.
smart, and
Yeah.
very, very aware.
Very classy.
Very
I
classy.
remember
Yeah.
Yep.
Delivered. But I actually became the face of multiculturalism with the launch of this thing that would ultimately become SBS.
Right.
It was the O28.
Yes.
Channel
that's right.
O.
028. Yes, I remember.
And in Melbourne,
Channel 28.
and
yes.
in Melbourne, there was a history for Channel O,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because they had to change it to make it. They gave Channel O to us, to this new venture, and they gave the old Channel O and they made them Channel 10. So
Right.
in Melbourne,
Yes.
there was always an O, but never a 10.
Yeah.
In Sydney,
Yeah.
there was only a 10, never an O. So we had a huge challenge, not only to win over an audience and get them to, remember, making habits or changing habits is really hard.
Yeah.
Not only in life, but in the media.
Yeah.
You suddenly have to create something special and excite enough people that they actually decide. And remember, no remotes in those days. I'm talking 1979.
Yeah, right.
They had
You
to
of course.
turn the
You had to
the
get up
dial.
off the couch.
Yes, no
walk
remote
all the way,
control.
yeah,
No, that's
and
right.
then-
that
and
was
yeah.
still to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were the remote controls, right? When our
Correct.
dads would sit
Their
on the
dad
couch,
would go, hey,
Yeah.
hey,
change the channel.
So for me, I went to this. I heard there was a press conference.
Yeah.
And Bruce Gingell, who had just returned from overseas where he'd made an awful lot of money for a guy called Lord Lou Grade. He had launched breakfast television in Britain.
Right.
So well,
Yeah.
he came back to Australia levitating,
Right.
Anything you want, Bruce.
Yeah.
All the networks were calling him. The government of the day, Malcolm Fraser, said to him, I want to start something for the ethnic communities of Australia.
Yeah.
And from that
Yes.
idea
Yeah.
evolved this television concept that became Channel O.
Channel O.
Now, I heard something was happening,
Yeah.
but I was asked by a radio mate of mine, because we're working on radio, he said to me, I can't make this press conference. Can you go down and have a look? So I thought, yeah, I'll go down and have a look. What's to lose?
Covering the news for the radio?
2WS in Sydney.
Oh, now you're on 2WS.
Yeah, I'm on
Right.
2WS, and my name is Danikian.
What do you mean, Danikian?
Well, okay. When
tell us that
when I
story.
sent the audition tape to 2WS,
Yeah.
ultimately, they said to me, love your sound, but Danikian doesn't cut it. It's too ethnic, mate.
Right.
I said, okay, fine, too ethnic. I've heard this before.
Yeah.
So he said to me, you can be George White, George Brown, George, any colour George is
Yeah.
fine.
Just not George
but
Danikian.
Danikian's too ethnic. I said, okay. So I rang my father. I rang him back. I said, I'll ring you back. I rang my father. I said, Dad, what do you think? I can get this job, but I've got to change my name. He says, good. You can always change it back.
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah.
Guts.
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean? He says, take one letter out, make yourself Danikian.
Wow.
So I go back to Mike Webb and I go, Mike, what about Danikian? Danikian. I like it. Yeah, good. So suddenly I can be George Danikian, but not Danikian.
Yeah.
6 weeks into the show as George Danikian,
Yeah.
I get the receptionist going, somebody rang from the office in Sydney and they want you to do something for them on St. Patrick's Day. I said, what? Yeah. Okay. So I've rung them up after I finished on air, and it was the organising committee of the first ever St. Patrick's Day parade in Sydney.
Right.
Wanted to know if I could host it for them because I was George Danikian.
Right.
So Irish
Because
is
Danikian
not ethnic, clearly.
Because Danikin's an Irish name.
Well, they thought I was an O'Danikian.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they embraced me until I
Yeah.
walked up.
Yeah.
Until I walked up on St. Patrick's Day.
And you looked like
to drink
nothing
the
like
green
a-
ale with a green tie, and they're going, "You're not Irish."
Yeah.
And I'm going, "Hey, to be sure." And we got on so well. They made me the honorary patron for the next half a dozen years.
Yeah, right.
Quite
Were you
wonderful.
still on radio at this stage or on TV?
Yeah, I was
right.
only radio.
Right.
Television was still a year and a half away.
Right.
After this presser that
Yeah.
I went to,
Yeah.
I took the deal in, and while we were waiting, they served. In those days, they did these sorts of things. They served tea and coffee for the television crews,
Right.
Yeah, and some sandwiches, which was quite lovely.
Yeah.
And the media and others, you had ministers there, all wanting to know more from Bruce Gengel, what was going to happen, what was going to about, what was this going to be all about. And I saw him just about to have a coffee, and I thought, let me break away from the pack and just go and introduce myself. Imagine. I had no right to think he would even entertain speaking to me.
Yep.
He's just come back. He's this huge figure in media. And I said, Mr. Gengel, you don't know me, but my name is George Danikian. And I'd love to think there might be a role for me in this new television venture.
Wow.
He said, who do you work for?
Mm-hmm.
Keith Graham.
Mm.
Oh, I know Keith. I thought, have I overstepped the mark here?
Yeah.
Anyway, he took my details, gave me an opportunity to speak to his PA.
Yep.
She wanted my mobile, which we had, thankfully,
Well, back
mobile
then you had
phones.
mobiles.
Absolutely.
What year was this?
1980. 1979, 1988, the first El Boxo.
Right.
The one
I was
in
going to
the-
say, yeah, right. so
No,
it was
no,
one of those, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not the
Yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
compact,
No.
foldable or anything else that you can. Mind you, we had the, I can remember in the early 80s, I had the foldable Motorola,
Yeah, right. Yeah, yes, yeah.
which was
yeah.
breathtakingly
Yeah.
special. Not
Yeah.
smartphone, but
Yeah. Yeah.
just
I
work.
remember them. Yeah.
But by the time I got to work that night to do my shift, Keith Graham is standing outside. He goes, what are you doing?
Mm.
I'm thinking I've overstepped here.
Mm.
And I explained to him
Yeah.
I'd gone in to do a favour for our
Yeah.
breakfast team. I got an interview subject and a quote for the news, the morning news, and I also left my details with him. He says, yes, we've had a long discussion about you. I've gone, deep breath.
Yeah.
I apologise if I've overstepped the mark. No.
Mm.
He asked me what I thought of you, and I told him, you're one of ours.
Yeah.
You've got a job here as long as you want.
Yeah.
What a thing to tell
Yeah.
someone, eh?
Yeah.
And he said, but if he thinks television might be my strong suit, he'll send me to do the audition
Yeah.
tape.
How old were you?
Early 20s,
Right.
hair to here,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
jet
Yeah.
black hair,
Because you were on radio, of course.
I was on
and, you know,
radio.
there was no.
moustache,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
beard, long
Okay,
hair.
we're gonna get a picture of that somewhere. You're gonna send
it's
me a
around.
picture of that,
It's around. It's
and
around.
we're
It's
gonna
around.
splice that in right there. Yeah.
Scary. Mullet and a half. Yes.
Yeah.
And to think that he could see something there, which tells you how desperate they
Yeah.
were,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He heard
Well,
me-
no, hang on a minute.
he
You had a
heard me
voice for
speak.
radio,
He had,
but you
yes.
also just didn't have a voice for radio. You had a face for TV, and that's, double
He-
whammy, right?
Well, that's part of what we're talking about. This is
Yeah.
where we're going. So I've turned up on the Saturday, and as life throws you wonderful little curlies,
Yeah.
they also throw you the occasional bouquet.
Yeah.
Milson's Point, which is a beautiful suburb in North Sydney,
Yeah.
next to the Sydney Harbour Bridge,
Yeah. And not far
right
from
on
Luna
Lavender
Park.
Bay,
Yeah.
you know, and above the US consulate.
Yeah.
Now, what a place to have a studio to do some auditions.
Yeah.
So I've rocked in, and while I'm waiting, there's this guy outside smoking a cigarette, you know, and I wander over and start to talk to him, and I realise he's a Greek boy. Yeah, didn't know that he was going to be the cameraman
Right.
when I rock in
Yeah.
to do the audition tape. Anyway, we just said hello, nothing more than that. What do you do? Anyway, so my turn comes. I walk in, and there's Peter sitting there, the cameraman, and I've gone, oh, I feel comfortable here. Then I'm introduced to the guy, the hosting
Yeah.
guy, who is basically trying to work out who or what you are,
Yeah.
if you have anything,
Yeah.
any gifts that
Yeah.
may translate
Yeah. Sure.
in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So I basically did a bit of a reveal. Who am I? What do I do?
Yeah.
What I love? Have I worked in television? No.
Yeah.
Would
So
I like to? Yes.
You didn't know what you were auditioning for
Absolutely.
at this stage.
And in fact, no one did.
Right. It was just let's see who's out there, what sort of a talent's out there,
And I've since
and
discovered,
then we'll place them when we feel they can
and
go.
I've since discovered,
Yeah.
this is over the journey, that Bruce Gingell thought that they would use me as the guy who'd come on at the end of the evening to do a news sort of summary, not a
Right.
news show,
Yeah.
a news summary
Yeah.
in a clear voice
Yes.
with an ethnic face.
Right.
Yeah. Then he introduced me to their news producer, news director, Peter Hanrahan, who I love and understand perfectly, and what he did and what he allowed me to do with as little interruption as possible was what allowed us to survive and then, blossom.
Yeah.
And what he did, he said to Bruce Gingell, hey, listen, forget the news summary. Let's do a news show.
Right.
What? Let's do a news show. You know what it's going to mean. Yeah. Can you get him to do it?
Yeah.
They said, yeah.
So
okay.
this was like a serious news bulletin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That they'd never thought about
Right.
until Peter Hanrahan looks at me, listens to me, and goes, this may work.
You just have to maybe cut the hair.
That's exactly the next line. Peter Hanrahan goes, hair's got to go. I said, okay.
Yeah.
Beard's got to go. Mo, no. I can't have you looking like a 10-year-old.
Yeah, right.
You've got to leave the moustache.
And now, listen, I remember. So, what year was this again?
1979.
1979. Okay, and how long did you do that for? The SBS News.
Nearly 9 years.
Yeah. Okay. So
nearly 9
yeah,
nearly 9 years.
1979. I was only 5 years old, so I probably wouldn't remember it then.
No.
But I definitely remember watching you on the news as I got.
Older.
Closer to 10.
Yeah.
You know, and
Channel
I remember
9.
you had a moustache.
Yes, I had him.
Yeah.
Actually, at Channel 9,
Yeah.
I got a chance to do all the sorts of things I wanted to do, but they weren't prepared to give me the late night slot
Right.
that they'd promised me.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest names in Australian television joined or returned to the Nine Network after years of being a superstar for them, and he wanted the same time slot as I did.
Right.
So I wanted to do a serious world news late at night called The News at 10.
Yes.
Graham Kennedy wanted to do a show called Coast to Coast,
Coast to coast.
where
right,
he
yes,
could take
yeah.
the piss out of,
Yeah.
pardon the language,
Yeah.
the piss out of the news and do it with a twist
Yeah.
and a flavour that no one had seen before.
Yeah.
Me, of course, when he asked me to be his second banana, I said, no way, Jose. There's no way you could do 9 years of world news and understand the impact of news and how important it is and how it affects people.
Yeah.
You can't do a funny about the 2 earthquakes in Turkey
No.
and the 20,000 people who've lost their lives.
Yeah.
You can't do it. At the time, there was a horrific earthquake in Italy and there was a massive appeal. So I couldn't, at that time,
Yeah, no, because
openly turn around and say, I'm going to laugh now.
you're a trusted
Well, I thought I
face,
was.
You know, why you're trusted, because that's one of the things why some of these, you know, like Brian Henderson, you know, in Channel 9 lasted so long, and the
Straight
the,
down
the
the
guy
middle.
here in Melbourne now,
Brian Naylor.
Brian Naylor, and so on. You know, you have to, people have to trust that what you say.
And the news readers had to be neutral. That
Yes.
is beige.
Yeah.
A colour that Graham Kennedy detested.
Detested.
He said, whatever you do, don't be beige, you know?
Now we're gonna get onto that. We're gonna get onto your work with Graham Kennedy. But there's a couple of things I want to address first when you were at SBS.
Go.
So you're on SBS doing world news. You did that for 9 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, two things. One thing that I remember specifically was the way that you used to be able to pronounce world leaders, their names, and very, very
But they had beautiful names.
They had beautiful names.
The French president was Valéry Giscard d'Estaing.
Yeah. Right.
Or it was François Mitterrand.
Yeah, yeah.
And you could roll it, yeah?
Yeah. But how did you...
The Australian television news anchor would go, the French president said today, no attempt at a name.
Right.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
The only time they would attempt anything
Yeah.
was the English Prime Minister, Harold Wilson.
Yeah.
Or Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
But no way would they do, you know, or attempt anything vaguely dangerous.
Yeah. So a little bit of fun here
Go on.
for the audience. Come on, give us your top 5.
Some of the great names.
Some of the great names.
Well, the Iranian leader of the House was the Hojatul Islam Hashemi Rafsanjani, which was a name that I saw quite regularly.
Yeah.
The leader of Solidarity or Solidarność, the Polish union, that was led by a guy called Lech Wałęsa. Everyone else called him Lech Walesa, but we called him Lech Wałęsa.
Yeah.
And when he was asked, why does SBS do it their way? As he said, that was the right way.
Yeah.
And that sort of set the cat amongst the pigeons.
Yeah.
That deeply offended Channel 9, 7, 10, ABC or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they were set in their ways.
Yeah.
They wanted to keep it pretty neutral. They didn't want to test the world. And as you know, the world has evolved and keeps changing. For a start, there was a place called Bombay years ago in India.
Yes.
It doesn't exist.
No.
It's now called Mumbai.
Mumbai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's Belangaruri. There are a place called Kolkata. Those places didn't exist. The other day when there was an earthquake in Turkey, they now call it Turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And half of the English media cannot establish which is the preferred pronunciation. So you imagine the turmoil we created in 1980.
Yeah. There was a couple of others. A couple of other
names.
famous names back then.
There were.
Who were there? There was a couple.
Oh,
this is like one of my
Alessandro
favorite.
Pertini.
Yeah.
Cicciolina. Who was
the Italian porn.
the Italian
who became
porn
a
star
politician.
who
Female,
became a politician.
Yeah.
We actually showed on the SBS News, as it was then, her first presser.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and we didn't have little stickers to cover anything.
Yeah.
And of course, the news that night went, whoa. People went, wow, get a load of this.
Yeah.
So, we gave this window to the world that Australia had never seen, had never been given access to.
Yeah.
And that was the most exciting thing.
Yeah.
We actually talked about Canada and talked about places like Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, that's what a Canadian understands. It's called Saskatchewan.
That's what it's called,
They understand what Canuck is.
Yeah.
Here, it's Canucks.
Yeah.
No, it's not, mate.
Yeah.
What do you call that place in Canada?
Yeah.
So we broke the mold. We opened the door. We unleashed the beast.
Yeah.
The Icelandic volcano, the Eyjafjallajökull volcano, which sent clouds and stopped every airline in the world traveling in the Northern Hemisphere. No one could approach the Icelandic volcano.
Yeah.
And we got 55 million versions of the Icelandic volcano. And then they started to learn, no, we're not going to say it. We just super it. So there's Eyjafjallajökull, and it was that long.
Yeah. But you went to the trouble of learning the names, and you rolled them off because it was this is one of my favourite dinner party tricks was when I'd have people over, I'd have a few to drink. George, come on, get out all the names. There was a couple more. What were they? Give me another two or three.
There was a world record holder, 800-meter runner, woman.
Yeah. Right.
Her name was Jarmila Kratochvilova.
Right.
Only problem is one of the major broadcasters on one of the major networks had said to me, mate, just give me a phonetic breakdown
Yeah.
and I'll get it right. I said, listen, I'm happy to give you the phonetics, but you've got to practice a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes old habits emerge and you'll revert.
Yeah.
He said, no, I've got it covered. So I gave it to him. Yeah. Yarmila Karatokvilova. And it ended up on television as Jarmila, your crutch fell over, which I've never recovered from. But it did teach me not to give too many other people a chance to understand. Because you've got to hear the language.
Yeah.
And I had a unique position. We were doing something never before done on major mainstream TV.
Yeah.
And that was we created our own subtitles. Now, subtitles are common today and allow us to watch streaming programs from around the world. Yeah. And they allow us access, and they make us multicultural rather than just ethnic.
Yeah.
If it's an Italian movie and it's only in Italian, it's an ethnic movie, right?
Yeah.
The minute you subtitle it, you make it a movie for the world.
For the world, for everyone to see. Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it had never been done before, never been seen before.
Yeah.
And how dare we try it? But what it gave me access to was about 100 young boys and girls or older people, all students, professors who understood the languages.
Yes.
And they wanted to come and establish a new style of storytelling.
Yeah.
Subtitles.
Yeah.
And I had access to them. I was their outlet,
Right.
their conduit.
Yeah.
And I'd go to them and I'd say, Wojciech Jaruzelski. I'd go, Székes Vekerva. Székes Vekerva,
Yeah.
the Hungarian.
So they
So,
taught you how to
Puskás.
pronounce it properly.
I'd listen to them
Yeah.
saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was iconic. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, you knew
Well,
when you watched SBS, and I remember watching it.
People thought I was Italian.
Yeah. Or you know, you
They
had
thought I was Irish. They thought I was everything.
Yeah.
Because we went the extra mile.
right. Now the other thing that before we move on to where else you went was that SBS had a reputation back in those days. You know, like there's all these acronyms. SBS. Sex before soccer, and all. It got that reputation of being
Only
like
by the time you got old enough to appreciate it.
Right.
In the early days, SBS had no reputation.
Right.
The only reputation it had was it was UHF.
right,
Not ultra high frequency,
right,
but ultra hard to find. All right, you can use that line when you want to, and we were given in this complexity. And see, television works on line of sight. The higher your mast, the further the signal goes, and more people can see you.
Yeah.
We were denied that option.
right,
There was a huge propaganda war being played out
right,
between the ABC, which was deeply offended by the arrival of this public broadcaster, which we never wanted to be a public broadcaster.
yeah,
We wanted to emerge as the IMBC, the Independent Multicultural Broadcasting Corporation, with ads.
yeah,
But the commercial broadcasters got wind that we would do the ads with subtitles.
Yeah,
And
right.
they thought, screw this. They come and cut our bottom line. So what they do, they lobbied in the Senate and stopped us. We were stillborn.
right,
So the IMBC never saw the light of day.
right,
So Gingell
Yes.
was approached by Malcolm Fraser and said, what do we do now? He said, you're the Prime Minister. Invoke the Special Broadcasting Act. And from that emerged this new entity,
yeah,
this new way of watching television. But they had to pay us through the government purse, and they took a little bit away from the ABC.
Yeah.
I've learnt in a lifetime
Yeah.
that the one thing you can't do, it's a bit like taking a rib out of a man,
yeah,
to create a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
It was all right for God, but for Bruce Gingell or anyone else, Malcolm Fraser, to take a rib and to create the SBS.
Yeah.
No way, Jose.
Yeah.
So that war started. That civil war started then, and they didn't want us. But we fought every day to survive, every day to make a living, and we fought for the right to be seen, and that's why we were given by the Department of Communication this UHF antenna,
right,
which was new technology and would help us break some of the problems that we had in Sydney. In Melbourne, it was clear.
Right.
Everyone knew where Channel O was.
yeah,
Because they had been there before. Remember
Yes.
when we started?
Yeah.
So now they had Channel O had become 10. O was there, and everyone in Melbourne. That's why my reputation in Melbourne is possibly stronger than it was in Sydney,
Right.
because we were seen by more people.
Right.
Right.
And it was strong in Sydney because, I mean, I remember it as a kid.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
But
And
it was because of the other things that we did.
right.
Yeah.
So how did then SBS get that reputation of being, cheeky, there's
Well, they had to push the
nudity?
We had to push the
And
envelope.
how did that happen?
Well, there were a bunch of guys, and they will remain nameless, okay,
Right.
for the sake of programming, and for the fact that the statute of limitations has not ended, right? So I can remember it this way, and it's interesting what our memories do. They play tricks with us, but this is a wonderful one. I was told by one of our guys in programming that he had this idea, yeah, to do an international cavalcade of movies every Friday.
Right.
Yeah? And he had a number of movies planned to unleash when the season started.
Yeah.
But he needed, first of all, to edit some of the ones that hadn't been edited
Yeah.
or censored.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, censored more than edited, right?
Censored
Yeah, right.
more than edited.
Yeah.
Correct,
Because nudity
correct.
back in those days on TV was
no nudity on Australian
Well,
television.
but-
mate.
but
We
what
were white
about-
Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Come on.
Yeah, but
You couldn't say shit.
yeah, what year was that? Sorry again, because when did number 90?
1979, 1980, the evolution of
Right.
that.
So when did number 96 come on? That came on later, right?
It came on later.
Because that was the kind of first raunchy sort of TV show,
Oh, yeah,
wasn't it?
and the box and number 96.
Right.
But they were shows.
Yeah.
But they weren't a movie.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
our movies that we had ready to show, if we were allowed to show them,
Yeah.
included a whole lot more than what you saw a flash of on,
Yes.
on the box,
Right.
or on a program called Number 96.
Yeah.
And I reflect back on that particular weekend,
Yeah.
where Peter Barrett said, "Listen, I've got an idea. I'm going to get some guys in who want to make a few bucks on the side, and we'll get them to sort through
Yeah.
all the movies,
Yeah.
and we'll put a line down the middle of the studio.
Yeah.
All the ones on the left, they're good to go.
Yeah.
All the ones on the right will need to be edited."
And
because
what-
once we put them on this brand new one of a kind machine
Yeah.
in Australia,
Yeah.
you can't stop it.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
it was being seen simultaneously across the country.
Right.
So you can't press the button and go, stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's already been running for half an hour in Sydney,
Yeah.
Canberra,
Yeah.
Adelaide.
Yeah.
They don't run the same time in
Yeah,
Australia.
yeah.
All right.
What kind of stuff had to be edited out those days? What weren't you allowed to see? Sex scenes, nudity, what?
Yeah, full on nudity, exotic behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And this one particular movie that I'll never forget featured all of these things
Yeah.
in the very first day.
Right.
And we go back to this
Yes.
editing sequence, and Peter Barrett goes, "I've got a couple of guys from uni.
Yeah.
No worries at all. We're going to give them the weekend,
Yeah.
and we'll be right on Monday, good
Yeah.
to go, and we'll get them ready for next Friday."
Yes.
I said, well, can't go wrong.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong, Peter? What we didn't realise was university behaviour. Yeah, young guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, you give them a chance to put a couple of beers together, a couple of special cigarettes
Yeah.
that you can't actually buy in a
Yeah.
boxed set.
I think we all know what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
there,
yeah. I think they make some in Canada too.
Yeah.
They're like logs, you know.
It's legalized in Canada now.
Are they? How exotic and how mature of Canada.
Yeah.
And there you go. Anyway, these young guys, it takes hours.
Mm-hmm.
And they spent the entire Saturday and Sunday locked in this studio. And
Yeah.
yeah. Was it left or right?
Mm.
What do you mean? Do we need them on the left side or the right side? Yeah, no, left. So all the ones that needed editing were left, right? Instead of the finished product on the left.
Yeah.
So comes the following
Friday.
Friday, Peter Barrett's gone, let's go. This is the program. French movie, straight up.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic movie. And it proved to be an even more fantastic movie when we realised it was the unedited non-censored version that went to air.
Yeah.
Now, I've just finished the news, and this cavalcade of world movies was about to start immediately after I got off air. We were
Right.
going to go into a TBC, which is an ad effectively talking about community affairs, you know, something of value for the various communities, and we had a few of them. And then the movie would start. So I had time to wander down out of the studio, make my way down to the corridor, and of course we've got monitors everywhere,
yeah.
so I can see what's going to air. And as I'm walking down, I've got a bottle of water and I'm sipping away, and I've nearly spilt the water all over me when I've realised there's this home movie currently on air, and I've gone, no, I've got to run to the guys in tapes and say, we've got the wrong thing on air. And as I'm running, Peter Hanrahan, the head of news, goes, hey, what's happening? I said, mate, some clown has got this home movie, porn movie, and they're showing it on air by mistake. And then Peter's gone, no, mate, don't be silly.
It wasn't an X-rated, it would have been R-rated kind of, you would have seen.
It was X-rated. It was probably triple X-rated, right? You can't imagine. You weren't born then. You have no idea the shock and we created. It was seismic. If it was a rating on an earth tremor, it was probably a 9.4.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, which is absurd.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And in those days, if there was a murmur that you had done something wrong, you could lose your television license.
So what happens then?
So I run in and I said to Peter, somebody has done something stupid.
Yeah.
And Peter's gone, no. He's pressing all the buttons next to his desk, which signify each and every channel available to the programmer.
Yeah.
And he can see the same movie in all of them. And there's this fully naked woman, full frontal. She's walked across her bathroom, sat on the bidet, and the subtitles have gone, you've got to love me. You've really got to love me. And she's wandered back to the bed where the boy is just waking up.
Yeah.
She's grabbed him by the hair. She's pulled his head down. Come on, tell me you love me. And we're all sitting there going, we're dead in the water. We are dead in the water. But one person's perspective can shift over a weekend. Right? I've come to work on the Monday, secure in the knowledge that we've lost our license. I've walked in and I've heard that there are 8,500 complaints made over the weekend. Normally, if you got 50 complaints, you were dead meat. Yeah. Right? Because the adjudicators and the arbiters and the people who control television would close you down. Yeah. Until I was pulled aside by one of the most beautiful receptionists that we had, and she said, George, you won't believe it. I said, what? 7,500 of those 8,500 complaints were complaining about the fact that we'd given them the wrong start time and they'd missed the first half hour of the movie. So Peter Barrett's gone, wow.
Yeah. People wanted, there was an appetite for it. But,
appetite? Mate, smorgasbord. Yeah. So suddenly the Friday night became the Swedish night, the French night, the Italian night. Yeah. And you think, Gina Lollobrigida, in her finest, not as a 95-year-old, but as a svelte 20-year-old, captivated and turned those little screens, crazy. Yeah. And
amazing.
Remember, colour had only been in Australia 5 years earlier. Whoa! Exotica. Yeah,
mate, we're not
and
gonna,
erotica.
We're not going to top that story for SBS. Let's move on now.
No, we can't top that.
So you end up working, I mean, across various channels.
Yeah, I got called away. I got lured, seduced by the money.
But then you did start working with Graham Kennedy, right? And so for those people watching from overseas, Graham Kennedy was an icon in Australia. Yeah.
He was Mr. Vaudeville.
Yeah, right.
In a way that very few people imagined.
So now you're comfortable to move into that role, right? And tell
us confident.
Yeah, tell us about what you did exactly, and we'll get some clips. We'll put it in there. What you did exactly, and tell us.
I said to Graham, I won't be your second banana. Yeah. But I'll be in the newsroom, and you can play with the others, and the others were Ken Sutcliffe and a guy called
Kenny
John
Sutcliffe.
Mangos.
Yeah, John Mangos, of course. Yeah.
And if you think about life and how sliding doors change your career, Kenny Sutcliffe had been 11 years at Channel 9 and no one knew who he was, respectfully, right? He spent 12 weeks with Graham, being his banana, second banana, and he became a household name and got what he wanted, which was a chance to host Wide World of Sports, and left.
Yeah.
So Graham says to me again, your chance. I said, no. I told you the first time. Second time, not happening. And he asked me again. I said, no.
Yeah.
He said, well, then you got to find me someone.
Yeah.
So I knew a young Greek boy from Melbourne.
Yeah.
His name was John Mangos.
John Mangos, yeah.
And I rang
Great
him.
guy.
He was in LA, Los Angeles, doing the overseas correspondent role. And I said to him, how would you like to do some real TV, some live TV? He said, when and where? I said, Sydney, Graham Kennedy. You're joking. No. And the answer was yes. He came, and the rest is history. And he and I actually became, for Graham, the calamari kids.
Right.
People that he could, tease, taunt.
Yeah.
He would carry out competitions, know, and the best prize he would send off and reward them with boxes of prophylactics.
Yeah, right.
Made in Thailand, all one size fits all. This is Graham.
Yeah.
And of course they were all sent with love from George and John.
Yeah.
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 And one of the
this was
things
groundbreaking TV at the time, wasn't it? Really,
it was. It was borderline crazy. But he pushed the envelope. He pushed the envelope, and he could do it because he understood how people react, and he also understood how languages throw up wonderful opportunities.
Yeah.
And John and I speak Greek, and it's Greek Easter, and his mother's a great cook, and I'd say, your mother's made some great lentil soup.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't say lentil soup. I said fakes.
Fakes, which is how you say.
Which is how you say it in Greek.
Yeah.
And of course, Graham's walking past. He's going, "What are you complaining about?" No. I wasn't complaining.
Yeah.
I'm saying. I've said to John, if his mother's making lentil soup, I want some.
Yeah.
He said, "You didn't say that." I said, "I asked for fakes."
Yeah.
You did what?
Yeah.
Yeah, fakes. It's
Yeah.
lentil soup.
Yeah.
And of course, then he sat down, and we ran off a number of words.
Yeah, because envelope is
envelope in Greek is fakelo.
fakelo. Yeah.
Which for the English ear
Yeah.
sounds vile.
Yeah.
Now, that's the sort of prize that Graham Kennedy sort of rejoiced in. He would go, what mischief I could get up to.
Yeah.
The Greek consulate and the Greek archdiocese were apoplectic, couldn't believe what the hell we were doing.
Yeah.
And I can remember years later when I got on the Vizard show to host it, and they asked me at the time, which guest do you want? And I said, I'll have, how many can I have? 3. I said, I'll have the boys from Acropolis Now, which was a Channel 7 product.
Yeah.
Yeah, all Greek boys.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2 Greek boys, 1 Spaniard.
Spanish.
Simon Palomares,
Nick Giannopoulos
Nick Giannopoulos and George Campagnarus.
Yeah.
Only problem was I said, no, it's too many. I said, what do you mean? Too many what? Too many ethnics.
Yeah.
I said, well, hang on a minute. You asked me.
Yeah.
Right? I said, so what do I have? You can have 2 ethnics
Yeah.
and you got to have 1 Aussie.
Yeah.
I said, really? Male or female? Oh, yeah, it's your pick. So I went, okay. Kate Fitzpatrick was a beautiful girl. She was topical at the time. I said, what about Kate Fitzpatrick? Yeah, great, no worries. So Kate Fitzpatrick and Nick Giannopoulos and George Campagnarus. So what did they do when they heard that we'd been told we couldn't have Simon Palomares?
Yeah.
They said, let's rock the boat.
Yeah.
So they had a song picked,
Yeah.
which was the Monaro song.
Yeah.
Which again doesn't translate too good in English. And they did the subtitles, except the subtitles were completely
Not what the song
not
was about.
legit.
Yeah.
And again, the Greek archdiocese nearly went into a myocardial infarction. And I said to the archbishop, as they say in Greek, "O sevas myotatos," who was a friend of my father's, Your Excellency, please understand. What we're doing is we're lifting the profile of the Greek community. We're not destroying it. Anyway, he eventually got to understand that we were being playful.
Yeah. Well, wasn't Graham Kennedy the first person to say fuck on TV, but through The sound of a bird?
It was his impersonation of a South Australian magpie,
Right.
which goes, and he does it with
Yeah.
all the appropriate
Yeah.
enthusiasm that one can muster
Yeah.
on live television.
Yeah.
And of course, in those days, you don't get a delay.
Yeah. There was no dump button.
No dump button. And to this day, there isn't really no dump button for television.
Yeah.
You can have dump buttons for, anything that, podcast, for example, or radio.
Yeah.
Because the technology allows it.
Yeah.
But television, no.
No.
It takes,
Because
it's such a packet of data.
You need editing and so on.
Yes, yeah. You need to get physical.
Yeah. Now, you've done a lot of things. I mean, you've read the news for Channel 10.
Yes.
Obviously SBS, but you were
And
on
Channel 9.
Channel 9. Okay, so Channel 9 was owned by Kerry Packer, and,
Yes.
Kerry Packer was, a mighty force. I actually miss Kerry Packer. There were so many great stories about him. So did you
They're
ever
all
get
real.
the call up from Kerry about anything? Did you ever meet? What was it like working with Kerry Packer?
If he loved you,
Mm-hmm.
you got undivided support.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted. I was allowed to travel to Italy for the World Cup in 1990.
Yep.
I stayed at the Hustler, Hotel Hustler, which was on the Spanish Steps.
Yep.
As a hotel, it was probably a 6-star
Yeah.
at that generation.
Yeah.
But it was all covered by the boss.
Yeah.
What a great way to spend a month in Italy.
Yeah.
But I can remember he would ring you, and it was the red phone. And if the red phone rang, you
Well,
were,
where was the red phone? Where was it situated?
they were strewn throughout the building.
Right.
And if near makeup, near the production desks,
Yeah.
and where the preparation was going on to be on air.
Yeah.
And if the phone rang, you had to answer it,
Right.
and then pursue and follow up on any instructions.
And who would? I mean, obviously,
Normally, the smarties would run away.
yeah. But he would ring that number?
He would ring.
Was
that,
anyone
that
else
phone.
had access to
no,
that
no,
number?
that phone was only his.
Right.
And whoever answered it, and normally it was the producer,
Yeah.
would answer it and oblige
Mm-hmm.
and pursue whatever request and make sure it was done
Yeah.
to the letter.
Yeah.
And if you did that, life was good. Life was very good.
Yeah.
LG.
Yeah.
And I remember one day there were two wonderful stars who were part of the sports team there.
Yeah.
And for one reason or another, Kerry had decided it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So the phone rang. He said, "Look, just tell the producer that you and Max Walker will do the show from today." Okay. What about? No. Just let the producer know to thank them.
Yeah.
They will be looked after.
Yeah.
But it's you and Max Walker on Sports Sunday. Okay. So there it was. The phone put down. I went over to the producer, told him. He didn't even bat an eyelid. Went into the makeup chair where the two people were and said to them, "Thank you very much for your service. You will be looked after, but you can stop getting ready for the show. You're not going on air."
Right.
So that was it. That
So
was
you
one.
then hosted it, did you?
Yes.
Because you've got an extensive
Sporting background.
background
which
and a sporting knowledge, right?
That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But Graham Kennedy and others, and Bruce Gingell especially, wanted me to be a newsman.
How did he react to what Graham Kennedy did, Kerry Packer? Well, did Graham ever get a call on the red phone?
Oh yeah, often.
Right.
But they behaved differently.
Right.
They had a different relationship
Right.
than us mere mortals.
Yeah.
And I can remember another time the phone rang. He had some international guests from overseas. That we were covering the races from Royal Randwick.
Yeah.
And the race had been run, and we were now about to start a movie when the red phone rang. And he said, "I've got some guests here. Run the race." We've just run the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, run the race. So I've gone to the boys and tapes, and I said, "Kerry wants to see race 5 from Royal Randwick." He said, "We've just run it." No, run it.
Run it
So,
again. I mean,
run it again.
Yeah.
So we've come out of Wide World of Sports,
Yeah.
where we've shown the race, but his guests and he were at Whale Beach or wherever the weekend resort was,
Yeah.
and they wanted to see it. And of course, in those days, you couldn't. There were no satellites, so you couldn't
Yeah.
just. So you had to show it on air.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah, yeah.
we hadn't got to this exotic stage where if you wanted it, I put it on a WAV file and just send it straight
Yeah,
to you,
yeah.
so you to play ad infinitum.
Yeah.
So, so suddenly, if you're at home, you've watched the end of Wide World of Sports, you've watched a commercial break, and you've seen the first opening sequence of the movie,
Yeah.
and we've gone into a commercial break
Yeah.
to then run the horse race.
Yeah.
Great. So we've done the horse race, and we're back into commercial break to go back into the movie. No, did you run the race? The phone rings again.
Yeah.
Did you run the race? Yes, we just did.
Yeah.
No, missed it. Run it again. So we run it again.
Yeah.
People have gone, end of Wide World of Sports.
Yeah.
Commercial break, movie start.
Movie.
Commercial break, horse race.
Yeah.
Commercial break, horse
Horse
race.
race.
Commercial break, finally back to the movie.
Yeah.
That's what you did.
And
The
they
red
would
phone
have thought
rang.
it was a mistake. I think the
No
most
mistake. No mistake.
No, it wasn't. But
For the audience,
for the audience, it was.
Totally lost.
I think the most famous case of Kerry Packer ringing up and demanding
Doug
something
Mulray.
was the Doug Mulray incident,
Yeah.
where Doug Mulray, who was big on
Huge.
huge
Radio.
at the time on radio,
Not TV.
would often host some sort of a one-off, a spin-off sort of a show, right?
Yes.
What was that show?
Dirtiest Home Videos.
Dirtiest Home Videos or something like that.
Which never saw the light of
Now,
day.
well, it saw the light
Well,
of
they
day
saw
for
it 15 minutes. We got.
15 minutes or something, because Kerry Packer was very famous for. I mean, he owned the TV show.
Yeah, he did.
But he was dyslexic, right?
Yeah.
And he
He
also
processed differently. You're right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and-
It allowed
and-
him to process things in a fashion that very few people could at the time.
Yeah.
But he knew audiences.
He knew audiences and he watched
Intimately.
TV.
Yeah. He
So
loved
there he
television.
was watching this show
Yeah.
that Doug Mulray had put
Oh,
together,
yeah.
which was the Dirtiest Home Videos or something
Correct.
like that, right?
Nailed it.
And he rang up and said, "Get this off right now."
Yep. And he did it to Mick Malloy. Mick
Right.
Malloy got a packet full of money
Yeah.
to do a Tonight Show.
Yeah.
One show.
Wow.
That was it.
Wow.
Kerry went,
Yeah. Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
not anymore. And that was it.
Yeah.
So that was it.
George, we've got to start wrapping it up. What other story can you tell us that that you remember from those days that you would really love to tell?
Ooh. Look,
I mean, you've done a lot. You've done a lot. You're an iconic character.
I think if you reflect on the opportunities I got
Yeah.
to travel the world,
Yeah.
to establish a career,
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't for the likes of Bruce Gingell, if it wasn't for the likes of Peter Hanrahan, who allowed me, imagine a kid with no television experience, to get the best job in Australian television at that time, and to have it for the number of years that I had it. My father never forgave me for leaving
Yeah.
SBS. He didn't understand that I needed to move because I felt that there was this gap between what we were doing at SBS and what the commercials were doing. And I wanted to prove to the commercials once and for all that an ethnic boy or girl wasn't less.
Yeah.
They could be more.
Yeah.
But I had to test the waters. I
Yeah.
had to push the envelope.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get the runs that maybe I hoped to attain, but there've been a lot of kids who have followed, and that's
Yeah.
been terrific.
Yeah. It's
And
been
watching you guys emerge and take it to the next level of entertainment,
yeah.
that would never have happened in 1979, 1980, mate.
No. And
Never.
and we thank you for paving
No,
the
no,
way.
no,
I mean,
no,
you
no,
were the
thanks.
face of it. You're one of the first, ethnic people on TV. I'm going to ask you this question because I just thought of it.
Yep.
What in your time that you were covering, what stood out as that you were thankful that you were there when you had to cover a particular story that broke a great story, and also a story that wasn't so great.
Yeah.
Just quickly, those
look,
two highs and lows quickly.
okay,
Yeah.
what people don't readily appreciate, one of the things I used to say to people, and they thought it was a funny line,
Yeah.
and it wasn't meant to be. When I left SBS and went to mainstream
Mm-hmm.
television, they said to me, "Why would you leave the best news in Australia
Mm.
to read for 9, 7,
Mm-hmm.
or 10?" And I said, "Well, because after nearly 10 years,
Mm.
it was the only program on Australian television that you began by saying good evening, and then you spent the next half hour explaining why it wasn't." The world
Right.
news
Yeah.
primarily is about heartache, it's about disappointment, it's
Yeah.
about factions, it's about hurt, it's about pain. In 1979, 1980, It was all about the Red Brigades. It was all about ETA. It was all about the Sendero Luminoso. It was all about the guys who were terrorists.
Yeah.
And they were horrific stories. There was nothing funny in any of that. And that transition for me was the most amazing one. I discovered that what we really were doing there was groundbreaking, but what I wanted to do was break ground for the next generation of kids. Because what we didn't have at SBS was a graduate school and a program that the ABC has to bring in cadets.
Right.
So unless I left,
Yeah.
there was never going to be a room for a Mary Kostakidis or whoever's followed.
Yeah.
You follow?
Yeah.
And people don't readily appreciate that and understand that. But I can say now full well that if I hadn't left, it would be a different journey for a whole bunch of people, not just me.
Yeah.
But I had to do it. I needed to do it.
Yeah.
And I've learned an awful lot. It's been chaotic, crazy, wonderful. And what you've met and the journeys we've travelled, fabulous, unforgettable.
Now, in your private life, what do you do to, every day to stay focused, maintain, level of fitness, or, just, what makes you get up every day and live your best life?
Well, I try to be a better broadcaster than I've ever been.
Yeah.
I take on board all the things that I've learned in media and try and teach the businessmen and women of today how to cope with the challenges that modern media is continually throwing up. So it's crisis management, it's media training, and for young men and women who really want to go above and beyond and want to see what they need to know so they can grab that floor space and run with it, they come to me and we coach them and take them through that. And I'm also doing some documentary making, which is, for me, a fab way of telling stories. Because at the end of the day, I'm the original town crier. Yeah? Hear ye, shake the bell, this is what we've got for you.
Yeah.
You think about it, I'm a modern-day town crier. And once you get the bug, very hard to lose it. Yeah.
George Danikian, it's been a pleasure, and I'm glad that we got to document this, because many times we've had over a nice glass of wine.
It's always been superb food and great wine.
And great food, great wine, all these stories, and I'm great that we actually got a chance to document them, and for all the kids to see in the future and to know there was a great insight into the history of Australian television.
Australian
so thank you very
television, like our society, is still learning. We're really a very immature country. We still haven't grasped that we're not a nation. Yeah. During COVID in Australia, we discovered that federation failed us. We're a bunch of states. We love parochial.
Yeah.
We play state of origin at every level of our existence. And one day, they used to laugh at Italy, having an election every couple of years. One day they'll learn you've got to grow up, you've got to make some serious decisions, and you've got to believe in what you do.
Yeah.
And when that day comes, we should do another one.
Absolutely,
to see
we
how
will.
much we've learned.
Absolutely. Thank you very much,
My
George.
pleasure, mate.
Great. Thank you. Excellent. Great. Fantastic. I'm really glad that we got to document that.
Well, when you think about it, stay